Hey guys, I'm Cicely Jr. here, aka Mustached Tom, and I'm here to review the movie Shut In. If you end up enjoying this full movie review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my Discord, second to my Patreon, third to my PayPal. Any donations are greatly appreciated. Help continue to maintain this channel and help with all the livelihood stuff. And with all that shilling out of the way, let's get into the movie Shut In, and obviously shilling will be recalled at the end of the review. So let's get into the movie Shut In. So when I looked into this movie, this is one of those titles that unfortunately has like another version of it that's also called the same thing, but I did find this one still, despite that. Anyway, I'm here to do what I always do and review movies as objectively as possible, so that means praising the good stuff while saying bad to the bad stuff. And with that out of the way, let's get right into the plot of the movie. So the movie starts off in this sort of wide open field with a young girl named Lanny, or Lane as she's shortly called, and her mom. The mom is the woman on the poster there, and their area that they're in, things aren't looking great. The food isn't looking great. The living scenario, not the best, from what we can see from the apples. The mom is calling her aunt about some sort of test. I don't know if they specifically, I don't know if it's like for a generic sickness. I don't remember. I just wrote she was talking about a test in my notes. Anyways, she agrees that she's gonna go be checked out or whatever. And while Lane is using the little restroom, she comes to some bizarre conclusion, or just sort of, since she's young and, trying to figure stuff out, she knows, or has kind of gotten the idea that someone has passed away, her aunt, I believe, or someone else, and kind of applies that to her dad, and the mother says no, he's just sick, and that he or she is being, I guess this is the same sickness that she has, or something along those lines. So she tells her that the apples are rotten, which again, just being more told that. Thus, we see the main room that a good chunk of this movie will be taking place in, the shut-in room. She starts by clearing, or blocking the door from closing on her with this brick. So she's trying to clear the room. She heads deeper in, and this is where she starts to look at the religious stuff. The Bible, a Bible, and a cross. These two items, I'm going to assume, based on the sort of overtone of how many times they use it and throughout the movie, is supposed to be a part of the theme, the greater theme of the movie, based on how obvious they make it. With her, as she, looks at the cross specifically, the door fully locks on her. So now she is trapped in this room, which I'm already going to have issues with objectively. Now, subjectively, obviously, I personally don't really, the whole, God stuff is, whatever to me at this point. It's whatever. But objectively, there are still issues here, but we're going to get to them in just a moment here. So the daughter is obviously on the other side, on the outside. She's trying to bust her way out. She tells her daughter to grab some tools, and she's a little, young and trying to figure stuff out, and so she tries her best, and for the most part she seems pretty helpful when those moments arise, and sometimes she doesn't necessarily always check in, but sometimes I'm guessing that's for convenience, and sometimes it's just like, oh, she's elsewhere, not hearing or as well. Anyway, so when the dad comes in to the picture, they get in a dispute. Sammy, their friend, quote-unquote friend, or someone who owes Sam money, and as he puts it later on in the movie, is sort of stokes the flame of their very weak relationship in this movie, sort of goading Sam on to be antagonistic toward her. He ends up slapping her, and gets to the point where he just literally tosses her back into the room. So he's the one who got her out initially and then put her back in the room. And now she left her phone outside, as well as other things, like her purse. And I guess this is where I'll talk about it. The dialogue in this makes this a little bit questionable of how this even all starts. Apparently this is not her first time getting stuck in this room, and that she's needed help getting out of this specific room before. Which definitely leads me to the issue of why would you only place a brick down flatly against the ground? I think you would take a few more precautions if that was not your first rodeo dealing with a situation like that. I don't know how you end up in a house where there's a door that only has once you're in it, you're locked in it. That in itself seems a little bizarre, but still, even if that's the case, even with that, if that is something that is that can happen, again, taking more precautions, like placing the brick the other way, this way, so it's facing upward, and maybe, I don't know, having more than one brick against the door, have set 3 bricks against the door, so you can wedge one flatly and then other 2 this way, so that it's not gonna slip through. Or, add in a chair on top of all of that. Literally this entire movie can be avoided if she had just did that. If she had taken a little fewer precautions in her approach to being in that room. Or at least being in that room when the dad arrived, because the dad puts her back in there anyway, so... I don't know, I feel like they could have left that part out, her getting stuck in there initially, and then just had it be that the father is antagonized into putting her there without her phone and the purse. I think that alone fixes that issue. There's your fix if you're looking for an objective way to just have it be there's no convenient way that this entire movie cannot happen, because that's usually, you don't want something in your script or in your writing. This is me talking to the people watching this. If you're wanting to get into writing movies, stories in general, video game stories, this is a little life lesson for you. Don't put something in your story that is going to break your story from happening. This is the core of the story, her being shut in this room. A pretty simplistic story, but there's a thing within that story that can still break the entire story. And the fact that that is in the movie definitely hurts the movie significantly. Again, it puts that idea in the head of, oh, this could have all been avoided easily. Like, the solution to this problem is so unbelievably easy that it's a little bit laughable that the writers overlooked this or put this in and didn't think, like, oh, people are gonna think less of this movie's writing quality because of that. So definitely a point off significantly for that. And again, just some advice for people listening to help people avoid making mistakes that are going to break your main plot. It's something, again, you want to avoid doing at all cost. So, with that being said, she is indeed now left in there. She hears some noises on the opposing side of the door, meaning that she's really, really locked in there. Her name is Jessica, by the way, but I'll just keep calling her the mother character for simplicity's sake. Excuse me. So he nails the door, as I mentioned, and she gets injured from the nailing as well. More biblical imagery as she, again, hands being crucified, as it were, because her other hand does get hit in a similar fashion or something along those lines. Anyway, so she yells at Lane to run upstairs and lock the door, and later on, when it's just the two of them, presumably, she's told to grab the phone, but the phone was taken. Then she's like trying to calmly talk to Lane, because again, Lane is really young. I'm gonna assume like this child is like 5 years old. Assumably, like she's learning her ABCs, so relatively young. So yeah, there's that. So the rest of the story is pretty much about her trying to find a way out while simultaneously trying to get Lane to take care of this younger baby, her brother, Lane's younger brother, who's a baby. So she's, throughout the rest of the day, she gets told to change the diaper. Lane does so. Feed the baby. She does so. She needs to eventually pee, but she's too afraid to go to the restroom by herself at this point in age, so she sort of just makes a mistake there. So, in the morning, she repeats the sort of process of, like, feed the baby. She checks her hand, which is bloody and all messed up. And again, we have another heavy look to the Bible. She looks directly at it. And she apologizes for yelling at Lane, as she eventually raised her voice at some point in her dialogue. Tells her to grab one of the various tools, like a screwdriver of sorts. She eventually, with the screwdriver that she does eventually bring, she starts to break the floor beneath. Now, I'm going to spoil this now, is apparently, and I don't know if this is like set up from before, up above the Jesus cross, there's the obviously above floor, but we later see in the movie that it's like wet, it's like soaking through, so it's easier to break through than the floor that she's she's currently working on right now. And I don't know if the movie was trying to imply that Elaine, while up there when using the restroom at some point, that on her own, like, flushed the toilet and then caused that to happen, because that's the room that's up there, is the restroom. Even though she went to the restroom down there by accident, well, not official restroom, but just, like, went. So I'm not really sure what the schematics of, like, the setup of that was supposed to be, other than her kind of wasting time. Again, unless, like, that was, I don't know, it's really hard to peg down what the issue with that is, like, because it comes so late into the movie. It does call into question if that was like that the whole time, or if that became like that. That's definitely an important question when locked in a room. Probably, I don't know, I think she looked up there earlier, I want to say, and maybe it became like that, I don't know. Because it did start raining later on in the movie, which could have also contributed to that factor. I'm gonna give the movie a little bit of a break on this one. I'm gonna assume that they're trying to imply that the rain caused it from the upstairs, like their housing just wasn't great, and then it went through to the bathroom, and then later on in the movie it became a more viable option than trying to get through the floor. So I'll give them that, but it is still a little bit convenient for the movie. But it at least has some sort of get out system. Anyway, so we hear that Lane dropped the baby at some point. Not significantly so, but so she's struggling up in her own way. The mom tells her to run. As Sammy comes back, Sammy, as I earlier said, is the one that came with the dad, and he apparently wants the dad to pay up for something. I'm gonna assume drugs, because he seems to be heavily on this stuff. The father as well, and in fact, the father gave her a thing of drugs while in that room. So she tries to use that very meth to her advantage, using it as a bargaining chip, while his initial plan was to head upstairs and just look at the cute little girl. Though it's obviously heavily implied that she already kind of knows that he apparently is a little bit of that pedo status going on. Now that's her conclusion based off of, I don't remember what, unfortunately. But she's like trying to warn the husband about that situation, and he's not listening at the moment. And so when Sam comes back on his own, it becomes even more intense, as the little girl obviously must avoid this particular type of guy, obviously. So she's upstairs and he's down there. He was about to make his way up there, and then she uses the meth again as a sort of system to get him to come back down before he does any creeper stuff. So once again, she looks at the Jesus. So that's your third installment of obviously, looking to religion. So she manages to trick him all the way down, and to place his hand underneath the door, claiming that she is trapped or like injured or something along those lines. So she is able to trick him to put his hand under the door fully, and then she drives the screwdriver through his hand all the way, and just so that it's like really stuck in there, she uses a brick and hits the brick into the screwdriver, which is already in his hand. So it is stuck in there, like through the middle of his hand. And he was like laying down, like talking to her, obviously through the underneath the door. So he's kind of stuck that way, unless he's gonna try to pull his hand out, which would rip from the middle all the way up, like that way or that way, which would be, quite the blood loss, I would imagine. So he's kind of stuck unless he wants to risk that, all that blood loss. As she's proceeding, at this point she's still going for the floor, and he is trying to get underneath her skin, using all this hope talk and then loss of hope and all that stuff, and the significance of him bringing up the whole him going up there and all that stuff. He says oh, were you also touched as a girl? And based off of just the body language, I'm gonna assume the answer is yes, question mark. Again, that acting is good when you can sort of get that implication across without needing to say it. So, actually something good in this movie. So again, pointing out the good and the bad here. So she lights up, she had a lighter, or something along those lines. So she, burns up his hand, and the fire spreads, significantly because, she had came down the stairs, Lane did, and then he grabbed her while still in that downed position with his other free hand. And that's what caused her to use the fire. The little girl, Lane, broke free. She ran off. He's still stuck there, while the mom uses the sheet that she had from last night to out the flames. She proceeds to light a candle, and we see her looking at that meth, touching it, getting ready to, get into the drugs. But she looks at that Bible again. And, she looks to the Bible once more, so this is the fourth installment of Bible or God. This time finding money within the Bible. This is money that the Nana left behind, the one that they were talking about earlier that passed away in the movie. We see that there is a note attached to it, as well as all this other money that's on separate pages, and that would help cover, whatever amount was in there. I'm not really sure, but I'm going to assume quite a few, since they were all on $100 bills. But she's too angry right now, so she tosses it at the cross, saying, "Damn you to God currently, like this isn't helping right now in the situation I am currently in." However, this is actually where she discovers the ceiling was leaking this entire time, or, when it was raining at this point, and he was like complaining that he was cold and shit and trying to get out that way, appealing to whatever he could at that point. And by the way, after the fire, after burning him, I should say, she checks his pulse, and I'm a bit upset about this one because she touches his clothes like this. That is not how you check a pulse. No, unfortunately, I don't know if that's necessarily supposed to be like a weakness of the character that she just doesn't know, or like the people not making it didn't know that. I don't know which is which, but just a quick lesson of how to check a pulse. Obviously, you're supposed to check under the arm like this. You're supposed to make contact, and then you press against somewhere around this area, right underneath your hand. And if you feel it and listen to it, you can hear or sense the pulse, which is why it's literally called the pulse. Another area to check, which she couldn't from her position, is the neck, like this, like somewhere around here on the side, where it's like close to the bone. That's another area to check for a pulse, usually, or the heartbeat, right on the chest, pressing against the chest. The third area to check for a pulse. 3 areas to check. She had the 1. She still did it incorrectly, though, when she was on that side. Anyway, so she breaks her way up the stairs, using her tools, and breaks through to the bathroom. So she eventually makes her way back up to Lane, checks on the baby. They are both currently safe. They're under the sheets. So she hugs them and heads down the stairs with both of them. And this is where she's on the other side. She's free. She's with her 2 girls. She gets to the other side, and she only kicks him. And again, that's what really makes me question whether or not she even knows what to do. Like, I would have done something significantly worse just to check. Like, just to double check if, like, this guy is really as monstrous as she claims. Like, I would have, like, poked him with, like, something sharp. Like, I don't know. But she only kicks him, and then proceeds to take his keys. So she brings the daughter and the baby into the heavy rain, breaks through the window car. She tries to grab the supplies that were left out there, because there's like nothing in the house, I'm guessing. She drops it, unfortunately, but it's too significantly, bleh, out there with the baby and the girl, so she hurries them along inside. But she had told them to get, when they went back in, the little girl's hungry, so she goes back outside, still not double checking on Sam when she does so. Again, another mistake. So the third mistake within that same time frame. Heads back outside, leaves the girl and the baby alone to get the food that she dropped. Then she sees the door, when she comes back, is locked. Sam has awoken, has gotten free somehow. Don't ask me how he got free without injuring his hand. Oh wait, no, she took the screwdriver off his hand. Sorry, I forgot to... It shows that, so my apologies. So that's why he was able to get free. So again, significantly still kind of her fault for things that are against her. I don't know. I feel like the writing definitely does make her a little bit too stupid, unfortunately. I don't know, it just stacks up a lot against her. So, he is up. She breaks her way back into the house. and she comes rushing up to see Sam with the baby in hand, the girl next to them. He has a knife to the baby, and he's like threatening the baby. Yes, it is that bad. So, seeing how dangerous this situation could have gotten, and the implied threat that he was before, again, probably would have taken a lot more precautions even before this. The 3 times she could have checked, or 4 times I went over, she checked his body and didn't do so sufficiently. Obviously, because he's obviously still alive. Now he's threatening the baby. The girl is over on his side. Luckily, all so conveniently, the dad returns, and he has a gun in hand, so even more convenient. So, he threatens to kill him. The father threatens to kill Sam. The baby and daughter are released. She grabs them. They hear a gunshot. The mother lies for safety, or not to make them or Lane worry about it. The dad joins the 3 of them, and obviously the dad put her in that situation to begin with, so there's all that going on. So she definitely wants her first priority is to get them checked in a hospital after their whole ordeal. But for whatever reason, he seems to be insistent that they take the drugs first that he offered her earlier. But she instead says she keeps insisting that they eat first, and then when he's not looking, she proceeds to install the drugs into his food specifically. So his dad eats the drugged up food, and once again threatens to kill her if she doesn't take the drugs. So this is how dangerous he is at this point in the movie. She keeps stalling and trying to make up excuses. Eventually, the drugs from the food kick in on top of the drugs he just took on top of that on the injection. So he starts to overload from the drugs. This gives her enough wherewithal to shove him, since they made their way all the way back up the stairs from this escapades, throw him or shove him out the window from the 2nd floor down to his death on the 1st or outside the porch area. And he is now dead along with Sam. So the 3 of them head outside, and we cut to some time later, in a separate but still sort of open location in a significantly better house, or at least a larger one at this very rate. And we see Lane coming in with a nice little apple, and apparently they use the Nana's applesauce recipe to create this food that they've been selling, so they made a business out of it. And it's the point of them selling it out, so they're doing better significantly, and the cops, I guess, never showed up, or I don't know. Anyway, the movie ends with them, or her going, the mother going over the ABCs with Lane, and she's better at it than she was from the first time she did it. And that was the end of the movie Shut In. Obviously, as I mentioned, there are a few obvious objective issues with this movie. The setup is a little bit convoluted, unfortunately, and some of her intelligence does come into question within the check-in, checking in with Sam with the information that she has already been, she already is kind of gotten the impression that he was a pedophile beforehand. Sam, that character. So not taking the precautions to check whether or not he was alive to the degree that you probably should be doing definitely feels like, I mean, just the amount of times, like the first time, I can kind of see a little bit, but the second time, that's already what I'm calling into question. Like, you should do a little bit more testing just to make sure, just to make sure that the situation is safe. So, there are a few issues here. So I'd probably give this movie like a 5 out of 10. So, sort of in between as my objective score. And with that is where my review comes to its close. So if you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my Discord, so get to my Patreon, there to my PayPal. Any donations are greatly appreciated. Will help support the channel, will help support me, and can make me review specific movies, or even play certain Let's Plays of video games, so definitely consider doing that. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye!